Hello students, welcome back to this e-Shikshana program with respect to your course data mining and data warehousing. In today's class we will be discussing about the topics data similarity and dissimilarity, which is the last topic of your module 2, and I would like to bring it to your notice that these topics are neither covered for A section, B section or C section students, so please pay attention. We have some problems also to be solved with respect to this topic, the data similarity and dissimilarity. Now the first thing, we'll start with basic statistical descriptions of a given data and its data set. Now wherein we'll discuss the first topic called as measuring the central tendency, and this measuring the central tendency involves mean, median and mode, and we have already discussed what is mean, median and mode while discussing the measures available in the fact table. And to just recall, your fact table will consist of dimensions and certain measures, and that measures we categorize it into three different categories. The very first one is distributive, the second one is algebraic, and the third one is holistic. Now we'll discuss those measures in detail, and I think these mean, median and mode you might have studied in your basic mathematics, wherein mean is the average value for all the given instances in the data set. Say for example, in this case I have taken salary of the employees in an organization varying from the value starting 30k to 110k, and what is the average? It is the summation of all the instances divided by number of instances. So if I get the sum of all the instances, the value is 696, and the number of instances or number of observations are 12. That means there are 12 values of salary for 12 people, so I divide it by 12, I get 58,000 as the average salary or the mean value. And sometimes this mean is given a weightage. That means every sample, every data object in a data set is given some weightage which determines the significance or importance with respect to the frequency of occurrence. That means, say for example, if I am giving a weightage as 0.5 to 30, it indicates that half of the people in the organization have the salary of 30,000, and if I give a weightage of 0.75 for 63,000, that means there are 75% of employees having their salary as 63,000. So that is what I call it as the weighted arithmetic mean or the weighted average, wherein based on the frequency of occurrence of a given data object in a data set is given weightage. That process I call it as weighted average. The second, we have median, and again I hope you know this also. We'll take the same example. The data already should be sorted in increasing order. That has been done here. I have taken the 12 samples in the increasing order or their ascending order, starting from 30, the lowest value, to 110k, the highest value. I have sorted it. And if I am supposed to find the median, right, I will generally take how many observations are there by 2. If I make, if the number of observations are odd, say for example 13, so 13 by 2 is 6.5, that means 7th in between, exactly the 13 variables or the 13 observations, the middle one is the 7th one, that I would have taken the value. But in this case what is happening, there are even number of observations or instances. So what will I do? I'll take the two middlemost values, that is 52 and 56, and then take their average. So if I take the average of 52 and 56, I'll get 108 by 2, that is 54. So the median is $54. So the mean and median is a simpler example, wherein the mean is average of all the instances, median is the middle value in the given observations. If it is having odd number of observations, then the exact middle value will be the mean. If I have even number of observations, as in this case, I'll take the average of two middlemost values. In this case 52 and 56, I take the average, it is 54. So the median value with respect to a salary in a given organization is $54,000. So next measure we have called as mode, which is nothing but the number that occurs most frequently. Now say for example, if two numbers are occurring twice, then I call it as bimodal. We'll see an example wherein I have set of input values with respect to the salaries of given employees as 48k, 44k, again 48, 45, 42, 49 and 48. Now you can see that 48 is appearing twice, fine. So that means it is bimodal. Any data object that frequently appears. In this case it is appearing twice, I call it as bimodal. Say for example, if 48 was appearing thrice, then it is trimodal. If there are n number of data objects and they are appearing n number of times, that is called as multimodal. So I repeat, any data value which appears twice, say for example in this case 48 is appearing twice, I call it as bimodal. If 48, the data value 48 is repeating 3 times, it is called as trimodal. And if there are n number of data values repeating more than twice, then it is called as multimodal. And these three measures, the mean, median and mode, for a given data set are collectively known as measures of central tendency, which will describe how exactly the given data set behaves. Next we have the measures of dispersion, and dispersion is nothing but the measure how the data is spread out across a given data set. And the common measures of dispersion again are variance and standard deviation that you might have studied in your lower mathematical classes. Apart from this, we have some more dispersion measures such as the quartiles, interquartile range, the 5 number summary and the box plot. And I think we have discussed this box plot in determining the fraudulent activities taking place in your banking transactions. So we'll see how this measure of dispersion helps in analyzing a given data set. First we'll see the examples for as well as the formulas for variance and standard, and then we'll go on to extend the topics for the quartiles, interquartile range and the 5 number theory as well as the box plot. So as I told, we'll just recollect what is variance and standard deviation. The variance for given n number of examples is nothing but the first thing is I find the mean value and I subtract the mean value from the given instance with respect to the total number of observations, and I'll get the standard deviation. And if I take the square root of the standard deviation, variance, sigma square is your variance, and if I take the square root of your variance, I'll get the standard deviation. So I repeat, and next is the mean value of the observations. How many observations I have? The x bar, I'll get the mean value subtracted from the individual instance divided by total number of instances will give me the variance sigma square, and I take the square root of it, I'll get standard deviation. Say for example, for the previous example, these values find 30, 36, I calculate the variance divided by total number of observations are 12, square of those values minus the mean value. Mean value we have calculated, it is 58. So I am subtracting the value of 58 from all the instances by squaring those values, and I get the variance sigma square as 379.17, and I take the square root of it, I'll get the standard deviation. These are the basic methods of your dispersion. Now we'll see the advanced methods available for measuring the scattering of data, your data dispersion. The very first one is percentile, and I think you might have heard about this term percentile in your higher examination. Say for example, if you're appearing for GATE examination, you would have heard about this term percentile, wherein these values divide a given sample of data into 100 groups. Say for example, even in case of your CET, if there are two students with the same number of marks tied with respect to the percentage and the CET marks, you would have been given a ranking as 243, 243A, 243B, 243Q. Different IDs would have, or the rankings would have given to you. That I call it as percentile, wherein a given data sample is divided into n number of groups, or in this case 100 groups. And those 100 groups, if there are 100 partitions, the p percentile or the last partition of a distribution is a value such that p% of observations fall at or below it. So if I divide n number of instances into n number of partitions, then that n number of partition, the nth partition will have 100 groups. And the most commonly used percentiles other than median, fine, are 25th percentile and 75th percentile, wherein your 25th percentile demarcates the first quartile, 50th percentile or your median demarcates the second quartile, and the 75th percentile demarcates the third quartile, and the 100th percentile demarcates the fourth quartile. So this percentile is nothing but dividing the available input data set into 4 equal parts. That process of dividing is called as percentile. We'll solve an example, then only you'll probably be able to understand what exactly is percentile. Now, what are quartiles? Are the numbers that divide an ordered data set into 4 partitions, each containing 1/4 of the data. Now, I defined this quartiles of 4 groups into Q1, Q2, Q3, and the last one will be your Q4 at the 100th position. So, Q1 is the 25th percentile and is calculated by multiplying the number of observations into 25 divided by 100, the percentage, fine, where n is the total number of data observations in a given data set. Similarly, Q2 is the median or the 50th percentile, wherein I multiply 50 with n number of instances divided by 100. Similarly, Q3, the 75th percentile, as n number of observations multiplied by 75 divided by 100. So now I have something called as interquartile range, which gives me the length of the interval between the lower quartile Q1 and the quartile, the upper quartile Q3. So this is the interval, indicates the central or middle 50% of the data, and this interquartile range is given as Q3 minus Q1. So the difference between the 75th percentile and the 25th percentile Q3 minus Q1 is interquartile range. And now what exactly is the range? It is the difference between its largest, the maximum value, and the smallest minimum values. Say for example, the marks of a student varies from 0 to 100, and in 6 semesters students have got marks varying from 40 to 90. So the largest value is 90, minimum value is 40, 90 minus 40 is 50, and that is the range. Next, we have a concept of dispersion called as pi number summary, wherein pi number indicates the data set can be summarized using 5 tuples, that I call it as 5 item list. Is a 5 item list comprising of the minimum value, first quartile Q1, median the 50th percentile or Q2, the third quartile Q3, and the maximum value of the set. So this minimum and maximum values are IQR values. Interquartile range, I'll have Q1, Q2 and Q3. That's what. Minimum value, maximum value. In between I'll have Q1, Q2, and exactly at the 50th percentile I'll have median values. We'll see an example wherein I have taken this data set, wherein 3, 4, 5, I have 6 observations. The first thing is I arrange the data in ascending order, that I have done it. So the maximum number is 31, minimum number is 24. So maximum is 31, minimum is 24, and I will calculate the range, max minus min. 31 minus 24 is 7, thus the range is 7. So this range will be used in your box plot application. We'll see how exactly box plot works. So far in your introductory classes we have discussed about box plot in theory. Now we'll solve the problem. What exactly is a box plot? It is a graphical representation that is used to represent the range, median, quartile and interquartile range of a set of data values. Now my objective is to draw a box plot for the given following data set of scores, the marks of a student, which range from 76, and it has different observations. So first thing I do is, the first step while designing a box plot is, I'll arrange the score values in ascending order, starting from the lowest value to highest value. That is what I've done, 71, 74, 75 up to 85. I've arranged it into ascending order. So once I have arranged, my next objective is to find Q1, Q2, Q3, min max, so that I can get the range and IQR values. So what will I do? I told I have to calculate Q1 and Q2. How will I calculate Q1? It is the 25th percentile, and I have defined the value for Q1 as n into 25 divided by 100, Q2 as n into 50 divided by 100, Q3 as n into 75 by 100. So I will use those formulas to calculate Q1, Q2 and Q3. So Q1 is n, that means n is the number of observations in a given sample. The number of observations here are 11. So 11 into 25, 25th percentile, fine. So 25 I have taken, so it is 2.75. that is nothing but the, if I take the seal of the function, it is the third value. Which is the third value? First, second, the third observation, third value is 75. So the value of Q1 is 75. Similarly Q2, Q2 again n into 50 divided by 100, n value is 11 multiplied by 50 instances divided by 100. So the value is 5.5. The seal of the function is sixth value. Sixth value is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sixth value is 79. That is Q2 value. Similarly, I find Q3 value. Q3 value is 75 percentile. So 75 divided by 100, 0.75 into 11 is 8.25. I'll take the seal of the function ninth value. Ninth value is 82. Yes, ninth value, 10th value, 11th value. So 82 is the Q3 value. So I've taken Q3 value as 82. So next is find the minimum value, maximum value. Minimum is 71, max is 85. I have found minimum and maximum. What is range? It is maximum value minus minimum value. Maximum is 85, minimum value is 71. So the difference, the range is 14. So once I find this range, I am supposed to find IQR value. What does IQR value indicate? IQR value is Q3 minus Q1. That is, I have missed the equal to symbol here. Q3 is 9th position, Q1 is 3rd position, so I'll get the 6th value. 6th value is 79. Now by using this box plot as well as the Q1, Q2, Q3 values, max, min, range and IQR, what I'll be able to find from a given data set is, I said your box plot as well as the quartiles are used to divide the ordered data set into 4 portions. So what is my ordered data set? Ordered data set is organizing the given input set values in ascending order. This is the ordered data set, and I am supposed to partition or divide the data set into 4 equal groups. What are those 4 equal groups? 1/4 of the data numbers are less than 75. Yes, 1/4 is less than 75 because the third quarter is 75, 25 percentile 75. 1/4 is less than 75. 1/4 of the data numbers are between 75 to 79. Yes, between 75 to 79, again I have 2 numbers. Below 75 I have 2 numbers. Between 75 to 79 I have 2 numbers. Similarly, 1/4 of the data numbers are between 79 to 82. Yes, 79 to 82 I have a number. And 1/4 of the data numbers are greater than 82. Yes, 1/4 of the data numbers are greater than 82. So by this what will happen? I see that there are values repeated, so that they are greater than some part of the numbers, lesser than some part of the numbers. This is how box plot will help me to find the quartiles, which will divide the given data set into 4 quarters, and these are your 4 quarters. Now we'll see what are outliers. So outliers are nothing but once I draw the box plot, right? So it will give me the lower bound as well as upper bound. So what are outliers here? Outliers will be any points below Q1 minus 1.5 into IQR or above. Below is your lower bound, above is your upper bound. I calculate the lower bound as Q1 minus 1.5 into IQR and upper bound as Q3 plus 1.5 into IQR. And I hope you know how to calculate Q1, Q3 as well as IQR. So I have taken an example here where there are 15 instances starting from 10.2 to 16.4. So first objective is to find the interquartile range. There are 15 data points, so the median will be 15 by 2, the 7.5 value. The CL of the function 8th value is 14.6. So 14.6 is the 8th value, and that Q2 is 14.6. So how to find Q1, Q2, Q3 we have discussed. So I found Q2 as 14.6. Q1 is the 4th value in the list and Q3 is the 12th value. So Q1 is 14.4 and Q3 is 14.9 and IQR is Q3 minus Q1. So 14.9 minus 14.4 is 0.5. So what will be the outliers? One falling below the range, one falling above the range. How will I calculate? Q1 minus 1.5 into IQR. What is Q1? 14.4. I have substituted here. Multiplied by 1.5 minus IQR, I'll get 13.65. Or with respect to the upper bound, Q3 plus 1.5 into IQR, I get 15.65. So what are the values falling below 13.65? 13.65 is not there, but still any values below 13.65 is 10.2. I have written 10.2. That is with respect to lower bound. What is above the point Q3? Q3 is I have found to be 15.65. Above 15.65 I have 15.1 here. Above 15.65 are 15.9 and 16.4. 15.9 and 16.4. This is how outliers will help me to find data objects below the given box plot and above the given box plot by using these two formulas. This is with respect to your outlier analysis. So next we will move on to the measures of similarity and dissimilarity. These measures, the similarity and dissimilarity, will help any given data mining technique to form a group of data objects into a cluster or classify the data objects as valid, invalid, or if there is any anomaly. All those details can be obtained using the measures of similarity and dissimilarity. And in measuring your similarity and dissimilarity, we'll use a metric called as the proximity, which is referred to as the distance function between data objects in general. So I think you might be using this proximity sensors in your mobile. Now when you start dialing a number, you'll see your mobile screen is idle. The moment you bring the cell phone nearer to your ear, the screen becomes inactive, and again you place it far, the screen becomes active. That is what I call it as proximity sensors, or proximity, the distance between data objects. And this similarity or the proximity for higher pairs of objects are alike, and dissimilarities are lower for more similar pair of objects. That means for higher pair objects the value is less, and for lower pair data objects it is very high. So these similarities are usually non-negative and are often varying from the range 0 and 1, wherein 0 indicates no similarity, 1 indicates complete similarity, or 0 no dependency, 1 there is complete dependency. As I told, the term distance is used as synonym for dissimilarity as well as proximity. Next we'll see the types of data similarities and dissimilarities. The very first one is the data matrix versus dissimilarity matrix, wherein we have discussed this data matrix as a part of your record data, wherein a matrix is a collection of objects in rows and columns, wherein in row represents the data object and the columns represent the attributes. That is what has been represented here with respect to this example. Record 1, record 2, record 3, n number of records. They are all objects, and attributes 1, 2, 3, 4 up to p. They are your attribute values. This is the data matrix. What is dissimilarity matrix? A dissimilarity matrix is a collection of proximities that are available for all pair of n objects. It is often represented by a n by n table. That means in case of similarity matrix you will have n objects and p attributes, but whereas in case of your dissimilarity matrix you will have n by n object itself but not attributes. Now that's what I am saying here. The diagonal elements, that means proximity between the same object, 1 to 1, second object to second object, third object to third object, will be obviously 0. So self distancing, the proximity between the same object is 0. And if you look at this matrix, if you calculate the values for the data objects of the lower triangular matrix, you can replicate the same to the upper triangular matrix. So wherein D in this dissimilarity matrix indicates the measured dissimilarity or difference between data objects I and j. So I have data objects I on the row, and on columns I have data objects as j. That's what I said. On row as well as columns I'll have collection of objects, but in case of similarity matrix I'll have objects and attributes. So attributes are missing here. So in general, the distance or the similarity I and j is non-negative number that is close to 0 when objects I and j are similar or near to each other, and it becomes larger when they move or differ. That is, the distance between d and dj will be equal to 0. That is, the difference between an object and itself is 0. That's what I said. The distance between 3 and 3, n and n, 2 and 2, 4 and 4 will obviously be 0. We'll solve a problem so that we'll clearly understand what is similarity matrix and dissimilarity matrix. Now what are proximity matrix for nominal attributes? And just to recall, we have discussed the type of attributes as nominal, ordinal, interval and ratio. 4 types of attributes, and we'll be discussing the proximity, the dissimilarity and similarity in terms of distance. I call it as proximity for nominal attributes first, and the formula for the similarity or dissimilarity. Yes, I'll make the term S or the notation S, I'll make use it to represent similarity, and dissimilarity I'll use the term D. So dissimilarity between two objects I and j is measured by p minus m divided by p, where m is the number of matches and p is the total number of attributes describing the objects. And alternatively, similarity can be denoted as 1 minus d of ij. I think you might be knowing this fine. The probability of head appearing when I flip a coin, if it is x, the probability that tail will fall is 1 minus x. So the same way, similarity is measured as m by p, where m, I repeat again, is the number of matches and p is the total number of attributes describing the data objects. Now similarly, how to define proximity matrix for binary attributes, and this distance measure for binary attributes can be used by using a 2 cross 2 contingency table as shown in this below diagram. I think we have used this contingency diagram to find various measures like support, confidence, the lift factor, the interest factor, the interestingness measure, the correlation analysis, etc. The same table is used here, wherein I have two data objects 1 and 0, object I as well as object A. This is a dissimilarity matrix because I am having objects rather than objects and attributes. So I use the terms Q, R, S and T, where Qn with respect to your association analysis denotes F11, R denotes F10, S denotes F01 and T denotes F00. So in general, the sum is the support count for data object I when it is 1, S plus T is the support count for data object Y when it is 0. Similarly, support count for item 1 with respect to object J when both are appearing together. For object J, it's a support count when object 0 is appearing with respect to object I denote it as R plus T. So dissimilarity for binary attributes is defined as R plus S divided by Q plus R plus S plus T. That's the total frequency, wherein R plus S is the positive frequency. Similarly, similarity matrix 1 minus D of Ij. That's what I said. Probability X of head is equal to 1 minus X with respect to the probability of tail occurring when I flip a coin. So 1 minus dissimilarity will give my similarity matrix. So you need not worry about the derivation as it is not in your syllabus. Just remember these formulas so that you can find the similarity and dissimilarity values for nominal as well as binary attributes. Next, we will see an example. The same thing. Fine. I have taken a contingency matrix with respect to the data objects Jack, Jim and Mary. On the other side, I have the data objects as gender, fever, cough, test 1, test 2, test 3 and test 4 results. So when I take the first data object, name with gender, name with fever, name with cough, I have taken an example with respect to your fever here. So the values of R plus is 1 and 1. Similarly, Q plus R plus S is 1 plus 1 plus 1. So you can apply this binary two-way contingency table here for two attributes with respect to name and fever or name and cough, wherein Y I can represent it as 1, no I'll represent it as 0. And positive with respect to test can be taken as 1, negative results with respect to a test can be taken as 0. So that is what I have substituted for the data object values from the two-way contingency table, and I find the values for various combinations as 0.67, 0.33 and 0.75. If I have higher value of dissimilarity, then the similarity value for Jim and Mary will be 1 minus 0.75. Similarity for Jack and Mary will be 1 minus 0.33. For similarity for Jack and Jim will be 1 minus 0.67. So that means with respect to dissimilarity 0.75 is IS. That indicates with respect to two data objects Jim and Mary, the correlation or the dependency is very negligible. That is how I define dissimilarity between binary attributes. So just to summarize what exactly is similarity and dissimilarity for given attributes such as nominal, ordinal as well as binary interval attributes. Nominal with respect to similarity, I say I'll give a value of 1 if both data objects P and Q are equal. If they are not equal, I'll give 0. The opposite of dissimilarity, similarity is dissimilarity. So if they are equal, I'll give 0. If they are unequal, I'll give 1. Opposite of similarity is dissimilarity or vice versa. Similarly, ordinal, I find the dissimilarity as the cardinal values of P minus Q divided by N minus 1, and if I subtract this value from 1, I'll get similarity value. Similarly, for ratio, I take the cardinal difference, cardinality value difference, again 1 minus D will give me similarity. This is the summarized table with respect to proximity or the distance measure for data objects which are nominal, ordinal as well as interval and ratio. Next, we have one more subunit wherein I measure the similarity between data objects by using mathematical functions such as Euclidean distance, the Manhattan distance and the Minkowski's distance. We'll define one by one. The first one, the Euclidean distance D between 2 points x and y in one dimensional or two dimensional three-dimensional or any high-dimensional space is given by the following familiar formula, which is more frequently used, wherein dissimilarity between two data objects x and y. I hope the equation is clear to you. I take the summation, the difference values between the data objects x and y. Say for example, if I have two data objects a and b with the coordinates x1 and y1, then the Euclidean distance is calculated as square of x1 minus x2 whole square plus y1 minus y2 whole square. If I take the square root of this, I'll get the Euclidean distance. Similarly, the Euclidean distance, if I take only the cardinality difference values, where 1 by r is the hop distance, the metric will be given to you. It is the hop distance. That means how many terms or the data objects are there. That is the value of r. If I take the square of the values and the square root, it becomes my Euclidean distance. If I take the cardinal values, it becomes the Minkowski's distance, which is the generalized form of your Euclidean distance. We have a third set called as Manhattan distance. The following are the most common, wherein if the distance r is equal to 1, then I call it as city block distance or Manhattan L1 norm distance. A common example for such type of scenarios, I call it as Hamming distance, which is the number of bits that are different between two data objects. So every data object will have some binary representation. What is the bit representation? What is the difference between bit representation from one data object to the other data object? I define that as Hamming distance. And in terms of your Hamming distance, we have two functions. One is called as SMC and the other one is J, wherein I abbreviate SMC as simple matching coefficient and J as the Jaccard coefficient, which are the variants of your Hamming distance. We'll solve the problems and understand how exactly the Manhattan distance works. And if the value of r is equal to 2, then it becomes Euclidean distance. And if r is infinity, that is if it is supremum distance or the max distance possible, this is the maximum difference possible between any attribute, then it is called as supremum distance, and it is given by this formula, wherein the limit varies from 1 to infinity, and I take the same. The Manhattan distance, if I apply the limit tending towards infinity, becomes your supremum distance. Fine. Now, so just to summarize, the dissimilarity between two objects is the distance between two data point objects x1 and y1. Then the following properties hold good. One is the positive symmetry, the other one is the positive property, the other one is symmetric property, wherein the distance between the same objects will obviously be greater than or equal to 0 for all x and y, and it will be 0 only if the two data objects are equal. And symmetry, the distance between x and y and x will be same. What is triangle inequality? The distance between object 1 and object 3 will be less than or equal to the distance combined together with respect to first object and second object plus second object and third object. All these three measures, if they are satisfied, then such type of measures are called as metrics. So what are the similarities between data objects? The same thing has been defined, wherein we will discuss some of the measures such as cosine, Jaccard and simple matching coefficient. Now first we will solve the problems on Euclidean distance, wherein I have taken 4 set of points with respect to a given data matrix, and the coordinates x and y are as follows. For point 1, x1 is 0, y1 is 2. For point 2, x2 is 2, y2 is 0. Similarly for point 3 and point 4. So I am supposed to construct a dissimilarity matrix, wherein I said a dissimilarity matrix is nothing but a matrix with n cross n objects. That means both on the row side as well as column side I have data objects but not its attributes. Had the data objects and attributes, it would have become a data matrix. Since I have objects on rows as well as objects and columns, it becomes my dissimilarity matrix. So as I said, I have data objects on row as well as column, and I have put the values as 0 for distance between P1 and P1, P2 and P2, P3 and P3, P4 and P4, because I have already told the distance between the object itself from one object to other object, it will vary from, but the distance for the same object, the self distance for a given object will obviously be 0. So P1 to P1 is 0, P2 to P2 is 0, P3 to P3 is 0, P4 to P4 is 0. So now first I'll calculate the distance between P2 to P1. What are the points for P2 to P1? x1 y1 are 0 and 2, x2 y2 are 2 and 0. First I'll demonstrate how to calculate the Euclidean distance between one point, say for example P2 to P1, and you can repeat the same process for all the other points. Now what is Euclidean distance? It is the square root of the square of the distances subtracted from x1 minus x2 whole square plus y1 minus y2 whole square. I repeat, the formula is take the square root of the values x1 minus x2 whole square plus y1 minus y2 whole square. So what is x1 here? 0. What is x2? 2. So 0 minus 2 whole square plus y1 minus y2, that means 2 minus 0 whole square. So 0 minus 2 is 2, 2 square is 4, again plus 2 minus 0 is 2, 2 square is 4, so 4 plus 4 is 8, square root of 8, fine, square root of x1 minus x2 whole square plus y1 minus y2 whole square. So square root of 8 is 2.828. Similarly repeat the process for P3 and P1, P4 and P1. Again repeat the process for the other values, and see, since the diagonal elements self distance is 0 and you have found the distance between P2 to P1, P3 to P1, P4 to P1, you need not calculate the distance from P1 to P2 because it will remain same, because P1 to P2 or P2 to P1, it is a symmetric property, the distance will remain same. So whether I calculate P4 to P1 or P1 to P4, the distance will be same. That's what I have done. P4 to P1 is 5.099, P4 to P1 is 5.009. So the diagonal elements will be 0, and if I find the values or the Euclidean distance for the lower triangular matrix, I can replicate the same for upper triangular matrix. This is how Euclidean distance works. Now I have plotted the same thing in terms of a graph so that I can see which points are nearer to each other. So if I observe keenly here, P2 and P3 are closer to each other, P3 is closer with P4, and P1 is far away from P2, P3 and P4. So I can start grouping P2 and P3 in one group, then I can combine P4 with P2 and P3 but not with P1 because P1 is having P1 data object is very far from these three. So these three will form one cluster, P1 will remain in another cluster. That is how your Euclidean distance concept works. Next we will see some more examples of your proximity measure wherein we will be defining your simple matching coefficient as well as Jaccard coefficient. The first thing is, if I take two data objects x and y and it consists of n number of binary attributes, that means both the objects x and y will obviously have n number of binary objects, and I'll define four notations m00, m01, m10 as well as m11, or in terms of your two-way contingency table we have already defined f11, f10, f01, f00 the same way, m00, m01, m10, m11, wherein what does m11 indicate? It indicates the number of attributes where x is 1 and y is 1. That means from both the data objects x and y, if the number of attributes are same, in x also the attribute is 1, y also the attribute is 1, then the frequency of m11 will become 1. Similarly, how many attributes are matching? That is the frequency of m11. What does m00 indicate? It indicates the number of attributes where x is 0, y is 0. Similarly, m01 indicates x is 0, y is 1. m10 indicates x is 1, y is 0. And as I already said, m11 indicates both the values of x and y are both equal to 1. This is my proximity for defining the simple matching coefficient as well as Jaccard coefficient. You can see the formulas. SMC, the simple matching coefficient, is defined as number of matches divided by total number of attributes. What are number of matches? m11 plus m00. m11 plus m00 divided by total number of attributes will give me the simple matching coefficient, which will describe the presence or absence of a given term equally, because m00 indicates both x and y values are 0, m11 indicates both x and y values are 1. So the simple matching coefficient for the symmetric attributes, that means distance between x comma y or distance between y comma x is equal. For such type of attributes, the SMC gives equal importance for presence or absence of a given binary attribute equally. Now, what is Jaccard coefficient? It is for asymmetric attributes. And what is asymmetric attribute? The distance between x comma y is not equal to distance between y and x. So, how do I define this? The number of matches for M11, I have missed the notation M here. It is the number of matches with respect to M11 divided by total number of non-zero attribute values, that is M11 divided by M01 plus M10 plus M11. How to find the values of SMC and as well as Jaccard coefficient, we will see with an example. Now, I have taken two data objects P and Q, and the binary representation for the two data objects P and Q is as follows: 1 followed by zeros with respect to Q, zeros followed by 1 0 0 and 1. So, we have already defined what exactly is M11, M10, M01 and M00. We will try to find those values. Now, we have already defined M11 indicates that the attribute binary representation for data object P is 1 as well as for Q is 1. So, we will see how many attributes are matching wherein P is also equal to 1, Q is also equal to 1. P is equal to 1 here, Q is 0, 0 and 0, 0 and 0, 0 and 0. Again, I have 0 here, I have 1 here. So, none of the objects are matching. So, what is M11? It is an indication wherein the binary representation of P is 1 as well as Q is 1. So, I find no instances matching, hence the value of M11 is 0. Now, what does M00 indicate? It indicates a matching wherein the data object value for P is 0 as well as for Q is 0. I repeat, M00 is the value of P is also 0, Q is also 0. P is 0, Q is 0, yes, one instance. P is 0, Q is 0, second instance. P is 0, Q is 0, third instance. P is 0, Q is 0, fourth instance. P is 0, Q is 0, fifth instance. Again, P is 0, Q is 0, sixth instance. P is 0, Q is 0. So, there are totally 7 instances wherein the bit representation for P is also 0, Q is also 0. So, the value of M00 is 7. Similarly, what is M10? It indicates bit representation for P is 1 and for Q it is 0. So, bit representation for P is 1, Q is 0. Next, I do not have any bit representations where P is 1. So, there is only one matching instance where P is 1 and Q is 0. So, P is 1, Q is 0 is one instance. Similarly, M01. M01 indicates the bit representation for P is 0 and for Q it is 1. So, we will see instances. See here. In this scenario, the bit representation for P is 0, Q is 1, P is 0, Q is 1. So, there are how many instances here? There are 2 instances, hence the value of M01 as 2. The bit representation for P is 0, yes, Q is 1, yes, P is 0, Q is 1, one instance, P is 0, Q is 1, 2 instances. So, the value of M01 is 2. So, substitute these values into SMC, you will get 0.7. For Jaccard coefficient, it will give 0. Now, what is the value of SMC of 0.7 and Jaccard coefficient of 0 indicate? Now, 0.7 indicates the SMC value will range from 0 to 1, and since 0.7 is greater to 1, it indicates that there is a lot of dissimilarity between these two data objects. Obviously, you can see there are only very few matching pairs from P to Q. And Jaccard coefficient of 0 indicates indicates there is no dependency at all. 1 indicates there is maximum dependency. So, this simple matching coefficient as well as Jaccard coefficient is for documents P and Q having binary representations. If there are any numerical values or text documents, then what is the measure used for defining the proximity measure? So, we have one such proximity measure for documents having the real valued representation as well as text document, and that I call it as cosine similarity, wherein this cosine similarity will identify which given two documents among a given n number of documents are closer together. So, We'll use cosine similarity for documents. Documents are often represented as vectors where each attribute represents the frequency with which a particular term or word occurs in the document. I think we have discussed about document term matrix as part of your record data, wherein the rows and collection of objects. The rows will be the collection of data or the document, and your columns will be the words that appear in these documents, and the frequency of appearance. Say for example, for the data object with respect to row as document 1, and with respect to column, if I write win and the frequency as 3, it indicates that document 1 contains details of a team which has won 3 games. That means the frequency of occurrence is 3. So I repeat, the cosine similarity is one of the most common measure used for finding the similarity in the documents if the document consists of text or the words. We will see how to calculate cosine similarity for two documents. The cosine similarity between two documents x and y is defined as the ratio of Cartesian product of the two documents divided by length of the document 1 or x, or multiplied by length of the document y. So I repeat, x multiplied y is the Cartesian product. The cardinality value of x is the length of vector x, cardinality value of y is length of the document y. So I'll take two documents x and y with their term frequencies for x and y respectively being 503, 02, 00, 200, and for y being 302, 011, 0101. So I repeat, please look at these terms 503, 02, 001 and y. X and y are nothing but the text documents, and these are nothing but the frequencies of words appearing in both the documents x and y. So as I said, the formula for cosine similarity, finding the similarity between two documents x and y, is the Cartesian product of two documents divided by the product value of the length of vector x as well as length of vector y. So first we will find the Cartesian product between two documents. How? What is the frequency of the first word in document x? It is 5. What is the frequency of the first word in document y? 3. So multiply 5 and 3. Similarly, what is the frequency of second word in first document x? It is 0. What is the frequency of second word in the document y or the second document? 0. So multiply 0 and 0. Similarly, multiply third value of document x with third value of document y. Similarly, fourth value from x to fourth value of y, fifth value of x to fifth value of y. Repeat the same process. That is what I have done. 5 into 3 plus 0 into 0 plus 3 into 2 plus 0 into 0 plus 2 into 1 plus 0 into 0 plus 0 into 0 plus 2 into 1 plus 0 into 0 plus 0 into 1. That is what I have done. So the Cartesian product between the two terms x and y is 25. How to find the length of the vector x, length of the vector y? It is given as square root of the values of frequency terms appearing in both document x and y. So 5 square plus 0 square plus 3 square. So you need not find the square values of 0 because they have no importance. So 5 square plus 3 square plus 2 square plus 2 square. That is what I have done. 5 square plus 3 square plus 2 square plus 2 square. Take the square root of it, you will get the length of vector x. Similarly, find the length of vector y. How? 3 square plus 0 square plus 2 square plus 0 square plus 1 square plus 1 square plus 0 square plus 1 square plus 0 square plus 1 square. So 0 has no significance. So don't waste your time in finding the square values of this. So 3 square plus 2 square plus 1 square plus 1 square plus 1 square plus 1 square will give me the summation value. Then square root of will give me the length of the vector y. So multiply these two, substitute in this value. Cosine similarity between x and y, x into y divided by length of the vector x and y gives me the similarity value of 0.94, and this similarity value of two documents, cosine value of x and y, will vary from 0 to 1. 0 indicates that there is no similarity between documents x and y. The value of 1 indicates that there is strong similarity between x and y. In this case, I have got a value of 0.94, which is tending towards 1. That means there is significant dependency between document x and document y. So these are the measures that we have seen, along with Quasine for text document, Jaccard and simple matching coefficient for your binary, as well as we have seen Euclidean distance, Manhattan distance, Minkowski's distance, as well as the dissimilarity between binary objects, nominal attributes, ordinal attributes, nominal values. They are all proximity measures in terms of distance for measuring the similarity and dissimilarity with respect to the given data. So this topic completes all the contents mentioned in your module 2 of this syllabus. So whatever I've taught in the regular classes has completed the first module and half part of the second module, and in the previous 3 or 4 video lectures including this one, I've covered topics of module 2. So some of the video lectures with respect to module 2 were not covered for C section, and these were repetition for A and B section also. But in today's class, whatever problems we have solved, it was not solved for or not covered for all the 3 sections. So I insist that you practice these problems with different examples, different sets. So in my next post that I'll be doing through the Google Classroom, I'll be giving some assignments so on these measures or the proximity values, so that you can solve the problems and understand how exactly a given data set can be analyzed. So I'd like to conclude that we have covered module 1 and 2, as well as in the first 5 videos I have given the details with respect to your association analysis. So as of now, with respect to today's videos lecture, we have completed both your module 1 and module 2. So I hope you use this COVID-19 lockdown period to improve your academics, and as well as prepare for both your internals as well as semester end examination. And also you take care of your health by repeatedly hand washing, as well as use sanitizers, and you go outside with a face mask so that you don't get infected with this COVID-19 virus. And I request you to stay home and stay safe. Thank you.